Hello everyone, and welcome to The Painting Paladin. My name is Justin, and this is the 5th part in our 7-part mini-series. Now we are just cruising right along with these videos and are getting close to Adepticon. So today we are going to focus on the fast-moving Smurf cavalry. Now these Smurfs ride out and attack the flanks of the enemy army, disrupting its battle lines. So with that being said, let's ride on over to our work desk and get started, shall we? Alright, now before we begin, I undercoated this model with gray Seer spray. Also, you might have noticed, but I left these models unbased, and the reason for doing that is so that we can paint the underside of the model. Now the first color that we're going to be using is the contrast paint, Blood Angels Red. Since contrast paints flow quite well, it makes them perfect for getting into all the nooks and crannies of this model. Okay, now that the red is dried, we can move on to the next color. For this next part, we're going to use the contrast paint, Wyldwood, and we are only going to be painting the gaster section of the abdomen, otherwise known as the ant's butt. Now that we've painted all the parts that would be difficult to paint if the model was based, we can go ahead and glue them down. Now in gluing these down, just add a small dot of glue to the feet of the ant, being careful not to overload it. Also, when gluing these down, stagger the models on the base. The first model's feet should be touching the front of the base, while the next model's feet should be touching the back. This guarantees that these models will be able to stack up next to each other. Alright, now that the models are glued down, we can go ahead and start painting the Smurf Rider. So the first color we're going to be using for that is Baharroth Blue, and that's to paint all the exposed skin areas. So just take your time and work your way around the model, being careful not to get any paint on the parts that you've already painted. Next, we'll be using Guilliman Blue glaze, and that is applied right on over that Baharroth Blue, just like a wash. Now when applying this, watch out for pooling, but if you do get any pools, just use the tip of your brush to soak them up. Moving on, the next color that we're going to be using is Gray Seer, and that's to touch up the hat and pants in case you might have gotten any paint on them from the previous colors, as well as to guarantee a smooth and even coat. Next, we're going to be using the contrast paint, Apothecary White, and that's going to be applied right on over that gray Seer. So just take your time when applying this and watch for any pools. Okay, once that's dry, we can move on to the next part, and that's going to be painting his spear. Now the first color we're going to be using for this is Steel Legion Drab, and that's to paint the shaft of the spear. Next, we're going to be painting the tip of the spear, and the color we're using for this is Leadbelcher. Once that Leadbelcher is dry, we can give the spear a wash. Now the color we're going to be using for this is Null Oil. The last thing we need to do on the model is to paint the ant's eyes as well as the Smurf's eyebrows. Now the color we're going to be using for this is the contrast paint, Black Templar. Alright, with that done, these models are finished and ready to be based. Now a quick note for basing these is to mark where the feet overlap onto the next base, so that way you avoid getting any basing material on that spot and they'll be able to stack up next to each other. Now I will be basing them the same way as the rest of the army, as seen in the first video, the Smurf Spearmen. Now that we've finished up these Smurf cavalry, they can ride on to victory. Now a few things to remember when painting these miniatures. The first is when painting something like this, it helps to leave it unbased at first so you can paint the underside of the model. And the second, as always, is take your time to avoid any mistakes. But if you make any mistakes, you can always go back to your previous colors and correct it. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to stay up to date with future videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone.